My name is V and now it's time for me to share my quiet time. Hey friends, welcome to today's episode of Fruitful Friday, where I share my quiet time nuggets with y'all. In today's Fruitful Friday, we're going to be looking at Joel chapter 1. Now you might be thinking, Joel? But yes, Joel. I actually hadn't thought of I haven't read Joel before, but I thought about it the other day and I was like, you know what? Why not? Let's read Joel. And y'all, it was fire. The first chapter even, I was like, oh my goodness. So I'm gonna share that with you guys today. I read it in the Message translation this time, which was even spicier. So let's hop into it. God's message to Joel, son of Pethuel. Attention, elder statesmen, listen closely. Everyone, whoever and wherever you are. Have you heard of anything like this? Has anything like this ever happened before? Ever? Make sure you tell your children, and your children tell their children, and their children tell their children. Don't let this message die out. Okay, so that was the first 3 verses, and this is here, God is sending a message to Joel, and it's so important that he needs to tell everyone, like everybody needs to get involved. So I was like, okay, Joel, I know nothing about Joel. Let me figure out about Joel. So about Joel, he's a son of Pethuel, like we just saw, and he was a prophet. Researching about Joel, it was kind of hard to figure out when his time was, because some historians were like, okay, he was like during the time of like the first temple when the Babylonians like snatched everybody up in Judah, right? Or he was like during the second temple where everything was rebuilt and stuff. So he was either of the time periods, right? And so God is sending him a prophetic message to tell the people, right? So let's continue reading on and see what that message is. What the chewing locust left, the gobbling locust ate. What the gobbling locust left, the munching locust ate. What the munching locust left, the chomping locust ate. So here we see a series of locusts eating what the others left over, right? And I'm like, okay, locusts. Why locusts? What do locusts represent in the Bible, right? And by doing research on that, it turns out the locusts represent destruction and devastation, and it was a form of punishment. You know, when people were not doing what they're supposed to do, it's like, all right, locusts eat everything. And so what I got from that is that the fact that locusts are eating up the remains of something doesn't sound like something pleasing is happening. Something is wrong with whatever's going on in Judah, okay? Something is wrong, right? So let's continue to read and see what is going on. Sober up, you drunks. Get in touch with reality and weep. Your supply of booze is cut off. You're on the wagon, like it or not. My country's being invaded by an army invincible, past numbering, teeth like those of a lion, fangs like those of a tiger. It has ruined my vineyards, stripped my orchards, and clear-cut the country. The landscape's a moonscape. This is God's wake-up call to the people of Judah, because something's wrong, okay? And for God to call out their drunkenness like that, he was like, sober up, you drunks. Y'all gotta get it together, like now, yesterday. For God to call out their drunkenness like that, it was a rebuke, okay? This meant that this had been an issue for some time, and God is tired of it. He's tired, okay? Not only the obvious sin, like the drunkenness, but there was most likely some underlying sins, like laziness, refusing to see the reality that they were in, right? And the state of their country, and probably just not being close to God. You know, so much so that they went to constantly drinking in the first place, and maybe some faithlessness. So this led me to ask, myself, and you can ask yourself as well, what is the reality that you may be refusing to look at and instead turn to your sin to get away from, right? And then, once you realize what that is, make the decision to sober up and get in touch with reality and get it together, right? So let's continue. Weep like a young virgin dressed in black, mourning the loss of her fiancé. Without grain and grapes, worship has been brought to a standstill in the sanctuary of God. The priests are at a loss. God's ministers don't know what to do. The fields are sterile, the very ground grieves. The wheat fields are lifeless, vineyards dried up, olive oil gone. Dirt farmers despair, grape growers wring your hands, lament the loss of wheat and barley. All crops have failed, vineyards dried up, fig trees withered, pomegranates, date palms, and apple trees, dead wood everywhere. And the joy is dried up and withered in the hearts of the people. That is so sad. This is pretty much a continuation of people not having a godly response to whatever is going on, because something wrong is like going on. Like everything is dead, like their joy is gone, and yet people are just like drunk and they're not like turning eyes to it, right? They're like dead. And the fact that God is sending them a message to get their heads out of the sand and mourn means that grieving for a small time is good. Feeling it is good. It's good to like see things and be like, man, this is bad. But then it's time to do something about it, right? And let's see what God is telling them to do about it. And also, you priests, put on your robes and join the outcry. You who lead the people in worship, lead them in lament. Spend the nights dressed in gunny sacks, you servants of my God. Nothing's going on in the place of worship. No offerings, no prayers, nothing. Declare a holy fast. Call a special meeting. Get the leaders together. Round up everyone in the country. Get them into God's sanctuary for serious prayer to God. What a day, doomsday. God's judgment day has come. The strong God has arrived. This is serious business. Food is just a memory at our tables, as are joy and singing from God's sanctuary. The seeds in the field are dead, barns deserted, grains silos abandoned. Who needs them? The crops have failed. The farm animals grown. Oh, how they've grown. The cattle mill around. There's nothing for them to eat. Not even the sheep find anything. God, I pray, I cry out to you. The fields are burning up. The country is a dust bowl. Forest and prairie fires raged unchecked. Wild animals, dying of thirst, look to you for a drink. Springs and streams are dried up. The whole country is burning up. Okay, so everything is going crazy, and the only thing left for them to do, or the only thing that they could do, was pray and cry out to God. Like, everything is a ruin, everything's a mess. They only had one option left, and it was to pray, right? It literally says in verses 13 and 14 that they are to do nothing but fast and seriously pray together for something to change. And the big picture that I got from that is that if I want anything to seriously change, because I'm pretty sure, like, even with y'all, like, there are some situations that you find, like, there are dead situations, like, nothing can change from them. Like, it's very easy to think, like, faithlessly about these things and be like, man, nothing's gonna change. But that's the only instance and where you need to pray and fast for it. That's the only way that that situation will change. And it reminds me of this one like part in the Bible where Jesus' disciples are trying to like get this demon out of the sky, and they're like, nothing's working. And then Jesus comes and he's like, hey, this kind of demon can only be taken out by prayer and fasting. And so I want to challenge you to go after it. And if you're like, nah, I have no idea how to even start going about that, well then I urge you to drop a DM in my Instagram. It's right here, okay? DM me to do a Bible study, and you'll see practically how you can go after applying this, how you can go after seriously praying and fasting. That way you can see a result, you can see a change, you can see that change that you're looking for. So that's Fruitful Friday, and to God be all the glory.